Tia, men always come back when you do this, after being ignored. Hi, welcome back to my channel today. I want to talk about something many people experience, but very few truly understand. Why men often choose to come back after they have ignored you. Being ignored creates panic. You start wondering what you did wrong, whether you should do something to save the situation. But from a man's point of view, those reactions often make everything predictable. Learn and make it easier for him to walk away. What's interesting is this: when you stop reacting the same way, a psychological gap appears, and inside that gap men begin to reconsider. Not because they are being manipulated. In this video I will share what you need to do after being ignored. Why this action makes men come back when it works, and when you should walk away without waiting any longer. If you're looking for mature perspectives on love, boundaries, and relationships, like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more thoughtful reflections in future episodes. And now, let's begin with the first part. What truly happens in a man's mind when you stop pursuing him after his silence. The psychological impact of being ignored by a man when a man chooses silence. The first thing that gets hurt is not your feelings for him, but your inner sense of safety. Through many years of observing relationships, I've come to see that silence advocates a very primitive response. With no explanation and no clear ending, the mind begins to slip into emotional chaos. At that point, the brain reacts as if it were experiencing physical pain. You become anxious, tense, and slowly turn inward to question yourself. What did I do wrong? Was I too much, or was I not enough? Silence offers no conclusion, but your mind keeps delivering its own harsh verdicts. I've heard many women say in their exact words, "It hurts more when he says nothing, we cannot let go." The story remains unfinished, and it is that uncertainty that keeps you emotionally stuck far longer than any clear breakup ever could. If you're in that place, remember this: you are not weak. You are simply responding in a very human way to a connection that was never properly closed. And it is in that state of emotional insecurity that the way you respond, what you do after the silence, quietly begins to shape the direction the relationship will take next. The real reasons why men go silent. A man's silence rarely comes from a woman not being good enough. Most of the time it reflects inner limitations that he himself has not yet faced. From the perspective of someone who has lived through many relationships, I've learned that silence is often not a clear decision, but a form of avoidance. There are men who are not emotionally mature enough. They don't know how to name their emotions, let alone express them in a healthy way. When they feel confused, they pull back. When they feel overwhelmed, they disappear. Silence becomes a familiar refuge, because it demands neither responsibility, not always consciously, but they realize that not responding makes the other person anxious, waiting, and adjusting themselves in order to maintain the connection. In those cases, silence doesn't signal strength, that it reveals a fear of losing control. There are also men who fear commitment, not because they don't care, but because they are not ready to take responsibility for what love requires. When a relationship moves closer to clarity, they hesitate, and instead of saying, "I can't," they choose to say nothing at all. Finally, silence can simply be an escape from an ending. The issue: saying goodbye requires courage, silence does not. But what you need to understand is this: that silence speaks far more about his inner state than it does about your worth. The issue, and when you begin to see silence from its proper place, you'll understand why the way you respond in the next part carries so much weight in shaping the entire direction of the relationship. The mistaken reactions that cause women to lose their emotional leverage when a man ignores you. Many women's first reaction does not come from logic, but from the fear of losing the connection. And in that very moment, many actions that seem harmless quietly shift the emotional balance. Not because you did something wrong, but because you are trying to save something while the other person has already withdrawn. Sending message after message is the most common reaction. Each text carries not only a question, but also anxiety, begging, explaining, or trying to prove that you are worthy of attention rarely brings closeness, when instead, it exposes the imbalance in the relationship. When you give too much in response to someone else's silence, your sense of control slowly slips away. There are wounds that are revealed in the wrong place. Instead of being understood, they become an emotional burden for someone who is no longer willing to listen. Anger, blame, or posting indirect status updates in the hope that he will understand often only widens the distance, because silence, when met with intense emotion, can quietly turn into a powerful tool. What is important to face honestly is this: when you react from a state of panic, you hand over emotional power to the person who chose silence. Not because they are stronger, but because you have placed your feelings in someone else's hands. There is one realization I have come to after many years of observation and experience. I feel I lost my power not when he went silent, but when I reacted from fear. If you agree with this reflection, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments so we can better understand each other's experiences. So what happens when you choose a different response after that silence? In the next part, we will continue by talking about how to gently step back with dignity and regain your balance and emotional agency. The right strategy: stepping back with dignity. Stepping back is not running away. It is a conscious choice. When a man has chosen silence, continuing to pursue him often only leaves you more exhausted and deepens your sense of insecurity. At this stage of life, after many experiences and relationships, I've learned that dignity is not about keeping someone close, but about how you treat yourself when things are no longer clear. Stopping the pursuit is the first step toward regaining balance, not through coldness or punishment, but by returning to your own life. When you focus on yourself, your work, your health, your meaningful connections, that you slowly stop placing all your emotions inside someone else's silence, and in that calm you begin to see things more clearly. There are moments when the right thing to do is to send one single message. No blame, no begging. Just a clear, calm, and self-respecting statement that defines your boundary. A message like that is not meant to pull someone back, but to free you from carrying what was left unsaid. After that, choose silence, not as manipulation, but as protection for your inner balance. The issue: this silence is no longer a reaction driven by fear, but a mature decision. And within that quiet space, your sense of agency slowly returns. But not because he changes, but because you stop losing yourself. If you've ever wondered whether stepping back makes you weaker, remember this: dignity does not make you smaller. The issue, and when you are steady, you are ready to see clearly what truly happens next in the relationship. The psychological mechanism that makes men come back when a woman stops overgiving. The first thing that appears is not loss but space, and in the human psyche, space is rarely ignored. From the perspective of a man who has lived through many seasons of life, I can say that we often fail to recognize the value of something when it is always present. Only when it withdraws do we begin to feel it. Absence does not create desire through force, but through contrast. When you are no longer there to soothe, reassure, or regulate the emotional rhythm, a man is forced to face his own sense of lack. Without the familiar messages, without unconditional availability, he begins to ask himself, what has changed? And that question does not point outward toward you. What matters most is this: curiosity arises not because you are silent, but because you have shifted your position in the relationship. When you choose yourself, you are no longer an endlessly available emotional source, and it is precisely that shift that causes a man to reassess the vantage. This is not manipulation, because manipulation requires control. What happens here is simply the withdrawal of an imbalance. You are not provoking a reaction, you are creating space, and within that space awareness begins to form. Some men come back not to possess, but to understand. But the most important point is not whether he comes back at all. It is that once you choose yourself, you no longer lose yourself, regardless of the answer. And that is the true ending, where every return or departure no longer has the power to shake you. As we reach the end of this conversation, you may have realized that the story was never truly about whether a man comes back or not. It's about the moment you begin to understand how you reacted to his silence, and what changes when you choose to stop, when you choose to return to yourself. Being ignored hurts not because someone disappears, but because we lose our inner footing. And when you learn to step back with dignity, to stop overgiving, you don't just create emotional space in someone else's mind. You create space for yourself to breathe, to stand steady, and to see things more clearly. If someone comes back, it's because they begin to feel the value they once took for granted, and if they don't, you still haven't lost anything, because you're no longer trading yourself to hold on to an uncertain connection. Mature love sometimes doesn't teach us how to keep someone from leaving, but how not to lose ourselves when they do. If you found these reflections helpful, please support the channel by liking the video, sharing it, and subscribing so we can continue these deeper conversations about love and life. And remember, when you choose yourself, every answer becomes enough. Thanks for watching my video till now, and see you next time.